Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. Climate change is a term commonly known in our modern day. This is the phenomenon, as defined by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, of statistically significant changes in the average or the variation in factors in the climate. These changes stick around for decades or longer. A publication from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC for short, has acknowledged that the parties which are signatories to the UNFCCC are not, as a group, on the right path to meet the goals of what is called the Paris Agreement. This agreement holds that the world needs to stay far south of temperatures 2 degrees warmer than those before the industrial era, with the goal to stay under 1.5 degrees of warming. Many papers have reported the effects of climate change in the literature, from worse fires during nights, when fires are normally supposed to be less likely to happen, to worse bleaching on the Great Barrier Reef, and changes which may happen even if the causes behind climate change are removed. However, a meta-review published recently in the Energy Policy Journal highlights one particular aspect of the impacts of climate change: economic impacts. This paper examines 69 figures for the estimated effects of climate change on the economy from 39 different sources. These studies were published between 1979 and 2021. In comparison to a previous review written in 2019, there are now a larger number of papers dealing with the possibility of warming in excess of 3.2 degrees Celsius. The author, Richard S.J. Toll, a professor of the economics of climate change at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam and an economics professor at Sussex, noted that 2.5 degrees Celsius of warming would be experienced by the average individual as if 1.7% of their earnings had been taken away. Moreover, in most estimates, the modern-day economy is stated in the report to be just as vulnerable in relative terms to the impact of climate change as the economy in pre-industrial times. A point made is that the warming of the planet is, in all cases, projected to have a negative effect. However, there have been some economic upsides noted as well, including it being cheaper to heat your home in wintertime, a drop in deaths due to cold weather, and the so-called fertilization effect from carbon dioxide. What this refers to is plants using water more efficiently and having a higher rate of photosynthesis. Although there may be disagreements between individual papers in the review about whether the economic changes due to climate change will be negative or positive, the size of this change is approximately consistent across the studies. If there is a drop in financial affluence, although gains are also stated as possible, the drop is expected to be less than or equal to 10%. What this means, according to the review, is that 100 years of a changing climate would not be more severe than the loss of 10 years of growth in the economy. This magnitude in positive or negative outcomes has increased from 1 year of growth in the economy as published by the same author in 2018. This is supposedly probable to be underestimating the real impact of climate change. Professor Toll writes that, using the example of 2 papers published in 2022, some say the effects are likely far greater than what has been published. However, this statement would hold the assumption that the effects that have not been found are negative, and that studies have not found them in more than 4 decades of research. The papers show that there has been more pessimism about the economic effects of climate change with time, as per the findings of the meta-analysis. However, this trend was not found to be statistically significant. There is uncertainty in the findings, but this is biased more towards negative outcomes rather than positive. With each degree Celsius of higher temperatures, the standard deviation for positive outcomes rises 1.02% in terms of gross domestic product or GDP, while for adverse outcomes this change is 1.43%. Incidentally, the standard deviation is a way of measuring how spread out the data is. In other words, as the world experiences more warming, negative impacts on the economy are projected to be larger than any projected positive impacts. Not that this review is the only study worth considering when it comes to the economics of climate change and global warming. In 2020, a paper published by a team from Indiana University and Chevron Corporation in Texas found that a population of 339 million were living on the deltas of rivers. These deltas are areas at risk of flooding because of their low elevations and highly settled nature. Moreover, of the total number of people who are at risk of flooding from cyclones, 41% live on river deltas. Hurricane Katrina is a good example of the economic costs of these scenarios. The hurricane started life 300 miles from Florida in late August 2005. It reached land in the United States on the 29th of August 2005. In New Orleans, floods of up to 8 feet, or about 2.4 meters, killed 1,000 and saw a fifth of the city underwater. From an economic perspective, the damage was also significant. The bill for dealing with Katrina's impact came out to roughly $100 billion. In the field of conservation between the 1960s and the 2010s, our perspective on nature has shifted, from thinking that wild areas without people are the priority, to an understanding that humanity and the natural world have a complicated interaction. The economic impacts of climate change only serve to underline the interaction between humanity and the biosphere. As always, thank you all for listening. Feel free to get in touch at the show's email address for any questions, comments, or topic suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.